Here's a big thing. So this is something that I'd prepared a while ago for a call specifically for this, and Brian and I were talking yesterday in that one of my big things is helping docs create a viable business because a practice that is 100% determined or dependent on the doctor, it's set up for failure. Like it's not going to work. It's never going to scale. You're not going to make a tremendous amount of income. And frankly, things are going to break down before they get better. So having a team that understands the vision and is there to put specific things in place so that vision becomes a reality is very important. So I had developed a quote unquote an executive assistant playlist. So in other words, an office manager checklist, a CA checklist. And I think this is going to be extremely valuable. It's a shame that there weren't more people on this call to benefit from it. And I'm almost tempted not to share this recording with everybody because this is about being engaged. So I hope this is going to be really helpful for Steve, for Blaine, for Wilson, who's on the call, and obviously for Brian too. So I'm going to share my screen here, and it's a long list, so I'm sure we won't get through all of it, but at least we'll go through some of the highlights, the high level of it, and let's open it up for discussion. I'd love to know what you guys are doing now, how you're leading your team with vision, what responsibilities have you put on them that you can take off your plate. And I just want to clarify, this is so important. And my wife and I talked about this all the time. She was less willing to let go of those responsibilities. She felt she had to kind of watch and manage, whereas I was just the opposite. I would tell them this is exactly what our vision is, so they felt it. So they were part of it, and then give them the vision, give them the task, and then leave them to it. And then we talk about it after the fact. Did it work? Was it successful? Was it a failure? So this is the biggest thing is giving them the vision, giving them the tasks, and then letting it go. And a lot of times, if you give them the vision, you don't need to give them the task. They know what needs to be done. So let's go through this list. I'll share my screen here. We'll talk about some of the highlights, and I hope this is going to be very helpful for you guys. Chiropractic Office Manager Playbook. So North Star principles, these are the number one things that we always talked about with our team. And specifically, so I had a office manager, Diane, she was with us. In fact, she's still with Dr. Vince now that Dr. Vince has taken over the practice. So she's been there literally 28 years. She started in early 1998. So she'll be almost 28 years in the, coming in the new year. So the biggest thing that we talked about was protect my time. Protect my time. Like I can't get distracted with these minuscule little details that don't mean a lot. They're not valuable details. So she understood that and she deflected whether it was phone calls at the desk, whether it was people wanting to meet with me, whether it was, certain emails or marketing people or whatever that was. She was very protective of my time and she literally managed my calendar. Um, you know, got me organized for what was coming up and what our marketing calendar was. She took charge of all that stuff, and that was so valuable. And I look back at it now, and perhaps I didn't acknowledge it as much as I should have at the time, but that was so valuable. So she organized my life. One thing that we talked about was, and I want to digress a little bit and say, this is something that I shared with the team all the time. I mean, they knew our mission statement, they knew our vision, they knew that our community was sick, suffering, and dying, and there was nobody that was out of reach for us. Like in a hypothetical world, we wanted to get everybody understanding the principle of chiropractic and give them the opportunity to get chiropractic care. So there was nobody that was out of bounds as far as that goes. So they all had this vision. So the goal was to optimize patient flow and make it as accessible for as many people as possible. No matter what volume we were at, we always talked about growing, and we talked about growing exponentially, not just adding another 5 patients, 10 patients a week. We talked about growing exponentially. So she was constantly thinking about how can we maximize our return and maximize our impact on the community. Um, we talked about delivering an exceptional patient experience. So, and again, these were things that we talked about regularly. They weren't just one-time things. This is part of our regular daily meetings. So, how can we make the patient experience better? So, we, of course, that included what are our special events coming up? What are our holidays? What's the office look like? Are we decorating? Are we serving food or refreshments? Are we um, creating different events for people to have a good experience in? So that was, again, part of these North Star principles. Read the play. So she was very good at understanding what was kind of happening in real time. Was there an issue? Were there problems? Was there low new patient flow? Whatever that was. And reading, okay, where before it becomes a problem, what do we need to address? Prioritize collections and case retention. So our main focus was retaining people who were in the office. It wasn't the hamster wheel new patient office. It was retaining people who were there and creating great experience for them and making sure that everybody was on some sort of a care plan. We did not accept pay as you go. Like that was a hypothetical statement. We did not accept pay as you go. So even in certain circumstances or very impoverished circumstances, we still figured out how that person could become a member of our practice, not a patient receiving care. We wanted them to become a member of our practice. And that's the way we thought of it. So we weren't there to deliver symptom relief. We were there to create a community in our practice. And so everybody was considered a member. So again, that was all part of sharing the vision. And and the big thing was when they understood the vision, they would share it everywhere we went. And one thing that I was really big on, and I've talked to you guys about this, is that um, we constantly in meetings and trainings, we talked about what is our vision. So, and I would ask them all the time, like, if you, hey, you got family coming in from out of town, what are you going to tell them about what you do? What are you going to tell them about what work is? And we would seriously role play it. So I wanted to be very confident that they knew what chiropractic was, what we deliver in our office, and what makes us truly unique. So I wanted to make sure they understood that. And so she was good at that. And she was good at my main office manager at sharing that with the rest of the team. So again, she was kind of my right hand person as far as sharing that with the other team members if they were new or trying to pull them up to our level. So let me ask you guys, I want to open it up. So based on that, what do you guys do that will kind of fall into those categories or those principles?
I was just thinking about it. So when we get the team together, I always share some vision or a story or something like that at the beginning of our training. So we do full like both office trainings on Tuesdays, I should say, every other week, and then we do doc training every other on the off weeks. And so there's always something to be shared, especially when the whole team is there on vision, on that kind of stuff. That really I think makes a difference. We've also empowered Hannah. She's our kind of lead CA. Nichelle's given her a lot more responsibility as well too, and she really gets the vision. And so she now comes to both clinics and trains with the team as well too, and helps make sure we're on track with things like collections. Like we've had some collection issues for almost a year for some of our MVA cases that we've had in the past, and my CAs at my clinic just weren't able to collect within half an hour. She had 6 checks being mailed to her office.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
I think so. And Steve, we've talked about this, is that the more that you can make each office as similar as possible. So having team members that can work in both offices with the same guidelines and the same principles is huge for your business. So that's
absolutely.
fantastic. Yeah. Nice. Anybody else?
Every huddle, we always, either myself, Blaine, Brooklyn, or Hannah, we always bring some sort of inspiration to share with the team before we break. So that's every day. We always have something that's either around vision or just some sort of inspirational quote for the day. And then I think both our CAs are really good at just keeping us doctors on track with our patient care. So if we're either running a little too long with the current patient, they'll pop over and tell us you got your next bay that you have to go to, or if it's a new patient, we have to take x-rays or whatever. They're always pretty good at keeping us on track.
That's awesome. That's great, Dr. Wilson. Good going. Hey, how many of you are using, we talked about using Chat GPT to give you strategies to bring to huddle, whether it be inspirational stuff or
Hmm.
studies against the medical profession or, damaging effects of the medical profession. How many of you are using that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. That's awesome.
This would be one thing just as we're talking about this as well. Whereas, and Colin's going to get into a lot more stuff here, but as you're going through this, like, hey, this is, these principles, this is what, we do as lead docs, and this is what we have some of our team help with. You always want to be thinking as well this time of year, okay, so if I was going to develop that team member more, like, what type of trainings, what type of support do they need? How do they become more autonomous, better leadership driven, those type of things. And then trying to foster those behaviors. Because I think a lot of times we continue to control a lot that we don't need to, and it slows us down, our ability to do more, simply because maybe we don't have the trust or the training or the skills driven into our people. They're capable of it, but we don't give them the wheels to run with. So I'd be thinking about those type of things, and as Colin gets into more, might drive up some good questions as well. If you're thinking of like, hey, we have this team member, they do this and this, but I'd love them to be able to do that. Like, how do you start to foster and develop those abilities?
This is great conversation because you have team members that have the ability, and I think this is your job as leaders in your office, is to recognize those people that work with you in the office that have that leadership ability and be able to nurture that and give them more responsibility. Because some people will flourish when they have more responsibility and they handle it incredibly well, and it allows them to turn into even better leaders. So it's finding that right person. Stephen mentioned about Hannah, and I've had some interaction with Hannah in the past, and definitely I see that in her. She's like a little firecracker. And I mean, Brian's got team members in his office. Justine, I know you have team members in your office. So recognizing those people and giving them higher levels of responsibility is really important. So a few next things as far as the key areas of responsibility, one thing that we really focused on was the patient flow and experience. So I expected the team to give me feedback and give us feedback, give the doctors feedback on the experience that the patient was having. Was it a good experience? Because they're going to hear things that I don't hear. So we talked about that. How can we make that patient experience better? The other thing was the schedule and calendar management. I detested downtime. If there were times in the office where there was nobody there to adjust, I'd be going like, what the heck is going on? And like our team took ownership of that. So their goal was to keep the calendar full. Like I didn't care. In fact, we got to the point where we would, in opening Saturdays, instead of going in for 2 hours or 3 hours or 4 hours on a Saturday and having people filter in through that time, we finally said, we're open Saturday at 9 o'clock. That's it. So what time can I come in Saturday? 9 o'clock. Well, I'm not available. That's the only time we're open, 9 o'clock. That's the only patient. So we would have literally between 40 and 60 people booked for 9 o'clock on a Saturday morning. Everybody. So some people come in 5 minutes before, 10 minutes before. Some people filter in 5, 10 minutes afterwards, but everybody's there together and it's incredible energy. So they took charge of that and they made the office vibrate at a higher frequency as a result of that. So the big thing that we talked about all the time was, again, as I mentioned, protect my time. So communication filtering. So Diane at the front desk was really good at that. If there was a question from one of the patients, she would filter that. She would say, okay, let me handle it first, And she made it very clear. In fact, it was part of our day 4 communication. If you come in one day and you're here to be adjusted and you have a question for the doctor, ask me at the front desk first. And I can potentially answer that for you to keep the doctor focused on delivering the best care so they don't get off track. Or if we need to set up extra time with the doctor via a phone call or email or maybe a special appointment, we'll do that beforehand. So she was really good at trying to filter those conversations. Um, Collections and financial duties, that was one thing that we were on top of, very much so. So she took 100% control of that making sure that our collections were coming in. Like you say, Stephen mentioned about the MVA collections. If it was cash collections, if somebody was off on their payment plan, whatever the case was, if somebody had some hardship, and that would literally come to huddle every single day. And we would talk about that during our huddle every day if there was something we needed to address to make sure we were on top of that. She took charge of the administrative operations. So if there was team conflict, and this is something that I think is really important for those of you who have bigger teams, you've got 2, 3, 4, CAs on your team or more. She took charge of team conflict. If Kelly and Mary Jane were having a little spat because Kelly said something or did something to upset Mary Jane, they wouldn't come to me. So she would field that and deal with it so it wouldn't get to my plate. And the thing is too, is that we gave her the authority to deal with that. So she literally, and we told the team members, is that, she's the office manager. She has the authority to fire you if necessary. I mean, I'm making it sound, terrible. And our team was beautiful. I mean, they were the most loving, caring group that we ever had, but it got to that point because we had a structure and everybody shared the vision. So even the littlest conflicts that would come up were dealt with internally and dealt with very, very quickly. We had great team communication. So we had a vision board for our team. And if there were questions or team issues or reminders about what's coming up on the calendar, well, we would, she would take charge of that, writing them down on the vision board. And then confidentiality and compliance, obviously. Any comments on those things? Is there anything else that you guys do with regard to that as far as giving responsibility to your team? Or do you see weak areas where potentially you could give more responsibility to your team?
I think the calendar management is something that we're continuously trying to work on. Sometimes it feels like my team doesn't understand that it's their responsibility to fill the calendar. And I just kind of make excuses about like, well, just, wasn't busy or the snow or whatever it is, right? And they don't kind of take ownership of understanding that like our numbers are their responsibility to make sure that we're being busy, right? I don't know how to kind of make them see that.
Here's an interesting training tip, and Brian, you can comment on this too, is that one thing that we would, and we actually had discussion about this, is that you have an idea of how long it takes you to care for somebody. Like some of you see 6 people an hour, some of you see 12 people an hour, some of you see 24 people an hour, some of you see 40 people an hour, whatever that might be. Have that discussion with your team. So here's the thing that, and this actually was part of our conversation, is that so let's say hypothetically you see 12 people an hour and you can keep up with 12 people an hour. So you're seeing one patient every 5 minutes on average. So instead of your team booking 3 across every 15 minutes, the team could book all 12 of those people on the hour so that they all show up at the same time. And so some people are going to show up a few minutes early, some people are going to show up a few minutes late, but it's busy for the time that all those people are there. So what happens is that lessens the time that you're standing around. It improves your communication with patients because there's a bunch of people waiting to be adjusted, and it improves your delivery because you get into the flow better. One of the worst things for chiropractors is to adjust somebody, go sit down at your desk. Get up, adjust somebody, go sit down at your desk. Like that takes you completely out of your flow. So that would be a good conversation to have with your team to say, okay, let's just try maybe booking everybody that comes in on the hour, every hour, and then all those people come in at once and see what happens to your practice.
The one big thing is you're trying to pass off responsibility, Stephen, and it's like, so when you're responsible for it, so say it's new patients, like your example there, right? It's okay. So like the goal is whatever, this many new patients, and this is where they're going to come from. Like you have the plan as to where they're going to come from, and you want to break it down by week, where they're coming from, etc. So as you're doing it, first, as you're training someone to take it over, like for us, it's Maria. She's the NCA, so her responsibility is new patients. So I was like, okay, so what's the goal for the month? Where are they all coming from per week? Where are they coming from? So when we report every week, it's like, okay, so where are we at? On track, off track? If we're on track, why? You always want to celebrate the wins, like something's going well. And what do we continue to celebrate or do here? If off track, where are we off and why? Right? And then what's going to be like what's the delta we got to correct? So we're back on track again because we still want to hit goal by end of the month. So if we're off track for 1 week, that's fine. But what has to change so we're back on track by next week so we can still hit goal for the month? And at the beginning, you're walking through that with them. As far as a leadership book, I really like a book out there called Turn This Ship Around. One of the biggest leadership things I got from that is thinking out loud. So instead of just coming up with answers for team, I would talk through my thought process as to how I would get to my answer. And when they start to understand your thought process, like, okay, so when this happens, Dr. Steve thinks about this and this and this. Oh, so I see how he gets that answer. So you're teaching them the thought process that you've done through all the different coaching you've done and life experience to help them. Again, it shortens the learning curve for them. So if they come in, they're like, hey, yeah, so the goal was, to be on track. We were supposed to have 10 new patients in this week. We had the snowstorm come through, so XYZ didn't happen. We only had four. But to make up for this, this is what we're going to be talking about this week. Our goal is to get more referrals. Our goal is to follow up on the people who couldn't make because of the snowstorm, like whatever that might be. But again, the goal is they're coming with like whatever happened last week happened. It's just a report of where we're at. What did we learn from that? And what's the action this week to get back on track? And at the beginning, a lot of times, like when someone's new in a department, I always have a 5-minute meeting with them individually about their department before reported to the team so that we know what the action step will be. We have that, but they deliver it. And then
So
once
here's
they're yeah, and then once they're doing it, then you just report like the 5-minute meeting goes away.
here's some really big things, and this I think will be very helpful for you guys. Is one thing that we made sure of is that we our huddles were very, very important. And we made sure that our team understood how important those huddles were. So we didn't miss huddle. Like you were not late for huddle. In fact, we had our profit sharing bonus, like our bonus structure, our monthly bonus, which we called a profit sharing. That part of the deal was is that you don't have a sick day. If you have a sick day through the month, then you're not eligible for your profit sharing or your bonus. If you are late for huddles, you're not eligible for your profit sharing or your bonus. So we put those things in place, and everybody agreed that, like, if we have a vision to really change lives in our community, then we all have to be engaged in this vision. So they would come prepared for huddle. They would be there on time or early. And every single shift we had a huddle. So, but we had each team member have a responsibility to come to huddle. So our main office manager brought the day sheet, and she was responsible for the flow of the day and what happens next for those patients. So, for example, if we had, let's say we had 100 people coming in for that shift, she would identify all of the special appointments for that day. We got a couple of day twos, we got a couple of re-examinations, and what she would do is she would even be so prepared to say, okay, there's 6 people that have re-examinations scheduled later this week. So the next time they're in. So she would make a mental note to let me know or let the doctor know to remind them that their next visit is the reexamination. So she would be hyper organized about every single person on that day sheet, where they were in their schedule. Have they been delinquent with their appointments, or have they missed recently, or are they off track, or if they have any special needs, and then also what's coming next. So that was her responsibility. The Texier, what she did is um, she brought the spreadsheet of all of the new patients for the month and where they were in their new patient journey. So specifically the day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, and day 5. So anybody that was on that day sheet that was in that day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, and day 5, she was responsible for that. So is there somebody that's dropped off? Is there somebody that's missing? Is there, somebody that is having some sort of an issue in those day 1, day 2, day 3 processes? So we would be hyper aware of every single person that was scheduled for that shift going into that shift. And that really helped us keep on track as a team. So we knew what conversations we were going to have with those people before they came in. So that was, again, that was really, really valuable. So that's something that we did talk about and we prepared for and we trained on. Um, prepare the treatment floor. I don't even like using that word treatment, but prepare the adjusting area. So that was, our tech CA is that she would go out, make sure that all the traction units were cleaned. She makes sure all the vibe plates are ready to go. All the wobble discs were on every share. If we had flyers that were for an upcoming event, she would make sure that they're on every single hot seat, and at every table. She would go and make sure all the tables were clean and the face papers were all ready to go. Like that was her responsibility. So when I came out, I was ready to start adjusting. I wouldn't have to go and start scrambling for anything. So they all knew what their responsibilities were. The main office manager, she was the one in charge of the inbox and the messages, as I mentioned earlier. She would filter all those messages. Um, Financial billing and tasks, she took all that stuff, admin prep for the doctor, end of day reset. So this was something at the end of the day. Um, so this is again another thing is that my tech CA would, at the end of the day, at the end of the shift, gather up all of the people who needed phone calls. And she was in charge of creating an email for me with all of those names and phone numbers on that email. So I could literally, on my way home, I'd have my phone on my pod in my car, my mount, and I would go through that email and just click on their numbers and make the calls. So they would be day 1 calls, day 2 calls. If somebody had a re-X-ray that I wanted to talk to them about, somebody's coming up for re-sign. So any special needs appointments, I would make those on my way out of the office to home in the car. And that was a great time saving time. That was when I would do all my calls. And I would literally, if I weren't done my calls, I'd sit in the driveway in my vehicle and finish doing those calls before I went into the house, because then I could just disconnect. But that was her responsibility every single day to do that. And she was right on the ball with that. Kevin, I know you got a very rock star team. Marianne keeps you engaged. What specific things does she do for you that make your life easier? There he is.
There I am. Couldn't figure out my computer. Yeah, she does a lot. She does everything. She does everything from bookkeeping to, I mean, I couldn't say enough about her. I don't know what you want to know. Um, she'll log on to the computers on the weekends and deal with things that need to be dealt with. Like she takes ownership. Like she feels like it's her practice. Um, so yeah,
So
how to create that? I don't know. That's a long. She's been with me for 12 years.
let me ask you
So yeah.
while you're thinking about it, let me ask you, so what does your training look like with Marianne and with the rest of your team?
Oh, we have regular trainings every Monday where we do staff meeting and we're training. We go through day 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and reevals, and so 12 years of continuous training. So I think we have a very well trained team. Yeah.
Awesome.
But I
Thank
think more than anything, it's um, it's understanding the vision, it's understanding the mission. If it's just a job to them, that doesn't happen. Um, they see the lives that are transformed coming in. They feel it. They want the practice to succeed as a collective team. So that's the most important for sure. Understanding the mission, the vision. So my staff comes to seminars twice a year and have forever, which also helps. Yeah, yeah. It's not just a job to them. They wanted to succeed for people.
So let me ask you, so now that we're talking about this, how do you reward your team for that?
We don't do a bonus structure. I've often thought of it as you talk about it. If that's what you're asking, I don't have like a financial bonus structure in place. I mean, I give, at Christmas time, I give a big Christmas gift, and throughout the year, if we hit a goal, I'll do other, once I bought Marianne a flight because she hit her 10-year anniversary. I sent her on a trip. So I don't have like a specific bonus structure in place, but I give gifts.
So
So
I'd love to know details on that. So that, and I think everybody on the line would love to know that. Is that so? Random gifting is fantastic, especially for your team, and sometimes it can be even more appreciated when it is random as opposed to when they do something really good.
yeah.
What do you mean? Like, tell us exactly what does that mean when you give them a random gift? What amount is that?
Um, I remember a couple of years back, we had a goal to get back to like hitting 400 a week. And when we did that, um, I took them to the mall and I gave them like $250 each. And I said, you have like 2 hours to go spend this. And we just did like a shopping spree. That's an idea I heard from somebody years back. Um, when she hit her 10-year anniversary, that's when I flew her and her husband. I gave them like 2 free plane tickets to go on a trip together. Is that what you're looking for? Specifics
Yeah,
like that?
yeah.
Yeah,
No,
yeah,
this is good, and this is.
yeah,
I think everybody on the line would love to know this stuff, and that's so. It's great you said that because you just reminded me. We did something similar. We actually got a limo for the team. We gave them all prepaid gift cards, and I think it was in the neighborhood of $200 each, and
yeah,
sent them to. It was Lime Ridge Mall actually, which is in Hamilton, 30 minutes away, because there's no good mall in Brantford. So they went shopping, and they said they had to give back the prepaid gift card when they came back. So they could give it back empty, or if they didn't spend it all, that's all coming back on the
yeah,
prepaid. So
yeah,
they made sure that they spent it all. So
yeah.
it was fun. So that stuff like that is fun, you guys. So make sure you implement that. That's really important to put in. And sometimes just random stuff like that, or you hit a milestone, fantastic. But sometimes just a show of appreciation can be huge for your team. So thank you for sharing. That's awesome.
No, for sure, for sure.
Anybody else? Okay. Just and then we just have our weekly checklist. So, our main CA, our office manager, she's auditing schedules 2 to 6 weeks ahead. So she's looking at like people who are on a care plan. So the next stage of their care plan. And so typically it was always looking the month ahead, 2 to 6 weeks ahead, what's coming up for, is there anything specific? We didn't want any of our practice members to feel left out. So we wanted to make sure we were aware of every single person. And this is even at times where we're seeing 1,200 a week. We wanted to make sure every single person felt specifically, uniquely cared for. And so if there were special events coming up or re-exams or whatever that was, we wanted to be right on top of that. We didn't want to drop the ball on stuff. So she took good care of that and charge of that. So that was all part of the care plan tracking and bringing that to team huddles. One thing we had a staff member, and it was typically our tech CA, which would monitor the inventory. So do we have enough home care kits in place? Do we have enough, like the supplements that we were selling, she was constantly doing inventory on those, making sure that we weren't out of stock on anything. Like the last thing you want to do is go through a care plan and recommend home care to somebody, say, oh, we don't have any home care kits. They're going to be in 3 weeks. Like that can't happen. So we wanted to make sure we were right on top of that stuff. And then our monthly checklist, obviously reviewing collections for the month. I was very open with the team about our collections. So I know some of you have different thoughts about that. You don't want your team to know about what type of money is coming into the office. And I'm going to say, I think if you think like that, you're being naive. They know. They see it. They're part of it. They know how much money your office is making. They might not know, the total amount of expenses you're paying, but they know how much money's coming in. So I think just to be completely transparent with stuff like that is only fair. And especially if you have a bonus structure in place or a profit sharing structure in place, then then the team is benefiting together or the team is suffering together, whatever that is, but you're doing it together. The office manager would always be checking as far as the credit cards, if there was an expiry coming up. In other words, she was ahead of it to the fact that, we wouldn't wait until the monthly billing told us, oh, this card is expired and the payment didn't go through. She was right on top of it to know what cards were coming up for expiration and perhaps telling the person a month in advance. And I'm going to say that's where, like, because I do administration for our companies, for DC2, for ChiroThrive. I'm not good at that because I always had somebody doing it for me. So that's not on my radar. So that's something that I fall short on now because now it's my responsibility. And I was never really good at keeping up with that because I had a team member doing it for me. If there were any monthly statements or invoices or insurance receipts or anything, she would print those off and have them all prepared and ready. And then we also talked about patient milestones. So this was, again, a regular huddle talk. Was somebody coming up to their 1 year anniversary? It was easy for us because we did 1 year care plans. So we would award them for their 1 year anniversary, or if somebody was there for 5 years or 10 years. And typically we would acknowledge those people at a special event, like a dinner. That was something we did regularly. And we would have awards at every event. So whether it was a makeover dinner, whatever, we would always bring people up and let them have a couple of minutes on the mic to talk about a testimonial and just share the love. So that was something we did regularly as well. Okay. So then we had a quarterly responsibility checklist. And every quarter, we would go through a list of patients who hadn't been in the last quarter. So if they hadn't been in the last 3 months, we would want to talk to them or at least reach out. So whether it was through a text message or an email or maybe setting up a call with the doctor, our main office CA was keeping on top of that. So she would print off a list, and Atlas was good for that. That was our computer-ish. I think a lot of you use Atlas. But you can print off lists of people who haven't been in a certain amount of time. So she would do that every quarter, and then we would do a reach out. And a lot of times we'd get a lot of people back in. We would talk about our procedures, go through reviews, what do we need to train on? Where are our drop-offs? We kept good stats. So, looking at the drop-off from day 1 to day 2, the drop-off from day 2 to doctor's report, and then the drop-off from doctor's report to actually sign on, or getting to first re-exam, or actually completing the care plan. So we knew those stats. So that would help us determine what do we need to focus on? What do we need to train on? And then every quarter, we would, as a team, during one of our staff meetings, we would do a deep clean day. And that would mean starting from actually walking out to the parking lot from a patient's perspective. And as if we're walking from our car into the office, we would look at the garden, we would look at the lawn, we would look at the cleanliness of the parking lot, we would look at the upkeep of the outside of the building, the fence in the back, whatever that was, what needed to be repaired, what was looking shabby. And then walking in through the front, to the front desk, how is that experience? Does the shelves where we have our supplements, do they look neat? Do they look tidy? So, and we would literally start making some notes to say, okay, what do we need to focus on? What do we need to work on? What needs to be repaired? What needs to be painted? What needs to be cleaned up? And we did that once a quarter. So that was part of our checklist. And then annual responsibilities, we would just go through like compliance review, and this is the time that when I say compliance review, we would talk about, okay, how's our fee structure? are we making sure that is every single person able to be on a care plan? How many scholarship plans do we have? Like how many people literally can't afford care? So we've put them on some level of a scholarship plan. Again, there was no option as far as pay as you go, right? So everybody was either on a care plan, a scholarship plan, or they would buy a block of adjustments. It was not come in and pay every time. We just did not do that. That was not an option. Equipment maintenance. So we would look at, okay, what needs to be upgraded? We've got an Insight thermal scan that we use. Is it working properly? Is this the time that we have to say, okay, we need to upgrade our scan machine? Do we need to get the tables recovered? Are they getting cracked? And that would happen throughout the year, but these would be times that we'd actually address it and do it. And we had, and I mentioned this on a call a few weeks ago, every CA had a budget that they were able to spend without coming to ask permission. So my main office manager CA had a budget of $500 that if something needed to be bought or upgraded or whatever the case is, and it was $500 or less, she would just do it and then just tell me afterwards, hey, I had to buy a new TV for the hot seat area, or I had to get a table recovered and it cost $250 or whatever that is. I didn't need to know that. So she had that budget and she just had the responsibility to do that. The other CAs maybe had a budget of $50. So, they needed whiteboard markers or they needed, some colored paper to make flyers or whatever. They were able to go do that and not ask permission. They would just have to bring the receipts in and just tell us after the fact. So that's, again, a good way to just allow for responsibility. Okay. Any other comments on that? I want to be cognizant of the time here. I got so many more things to go through here, but can I ask you guys, is this valuable? Can I ask, so for you guys that are on the line here, give me one thing that based on what we've talked about so far or what we've shared as a group that you want to go back and start implementing right away?
For me, I think it's to have a meeting and actually walk through the team and these responsibilities with them so that they understand them. I think too much of it has just been kind of not intentionally sat down and said, this is your responsibility. It's just kind of on the fly. Hey, like that's your job. Right. And they would be like, oh, I didn't know, so to have a meeting where we maybe even listen to this call and then talk it out, probably a longer one. Probably
Awesome.
have to be like an annual meeting on this kind of stuff.
I will share this checklist with everybody so that you have this and I'll leave it in a format that you can edit and modify if you choose to. Anybody else?
I think that we're looking too short term. We're very myopic in our analysis of things. Although we do it, we have to look further into the future and downstream to get a better idea. I think that was a great thought.
That's awesome, Blaine. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, great point. There were a few other things that I had down here that I wanted to just go over. One thing. Okay, so I'll get down to this part here. So we talked about obviously having somebody in charge of doing all the purchasing, supplies, equipment, headrest paper, anything, supplements, inventory, event materials. Again, part of our regular meeting. So we had a training and a meeting every week. And part of our regular meetings was our marketing calendar, what's coming up. And we would have, obviously looking at least a quarter out. So, so they would have a list of all the things they needed to prepare for those upcoming events. So getting event material. So do we need a tripod for a whiteboard? Do we need, whatever that was? They took charge of all of that stuff. So it would be ready. Do we need a new projector for a PowerPoint? Do we need one of those remotes for the projector? And the other thing was, as I mentioned earlier, the patient gifts. So we had regular awards for people or even random gifts for people that had special events. So somebody had a grandchild, the team would go out and buy like a little sleeper for the grandbaby or, as a special gift for that patient. or a recognition award, a recognition gift that they've been there for 5 years. We'd get them something, something special, or somebody had a death in the family. We'd often send a plant or flowers or something like that. So the team again took responsibility of all that. They were right on top of it. Our goal was, and this is part of the vision, we wanted to create a community of family that people felt part of. People could come into our office and feel that we were vibrating love and caring at a higher level and want to be there, like want to make us part of their regular routine, regular family. And I think we became really successful at that because we had such a high maintenance practice. But that was a big part of the reason. Our team was engaged in that. All of us, we were all engaged in creating that. So that was something that we really wanted to paint that vision for people. And then the big thing was our marketing calendar. So special responsibilities as far as our upcoming workshops, like any reactivation campaigns and stuff, website, email updates, social media support. Our tech CA took charge of that. And now knowing what I know now from a marketing perspective, I know that could have been so much better. But at the time, it was actually quite good. And this is something too, I can't now obviously put marketing hat on. I can't tell you enough how important it is to have a good, regular, organic posting program. So whether you have somebody in-house doing it or whether you're hiring somebody out of the office doing it, and now with the ability of AI, you can do it very efficiently, very frequently. But like honestly, daily posts, if you're not doing daily posts in your office, you're missing out. And a lot of you are spending money on paid marketing, but you can get so much value out of doing your organic campaigns, increasing your followers, creating interest in what you do in your office, that right there, that drives a lot of the energy and the new patient flow and the referrals. So again, that's another thing to think about. So I will share this list with everybody, and I'll put it in the form of a link that I can share in the chat. Any other final thoughts from you guys?
Last thing, just for implementation on this, Steve or anyone else, as you asked the question, is it'd be useful taking like these notes that Colin's put together and almost creating like well, not almost, but actually creating an org chart for your office. So everyone understands how it flows, if certain people got to report to certain others. That way, like I've always found the visual part helps people understand kind of where it all flows together. Because like some people, at some point, it's not always going to come to the doctor. It's also something to review all the time. So we typically review ours in January because it's not like sometimes people move into different roles or someone's better suited, etc.
Okay, guys. Well, I hope that was helpful, and I appreciate the participation. Thank you guys for being engaged in this, and this was, I think, a very valuable call. So going into the holidays, hey, if nothing else, share the love with your team. Like, let them know how important they are, and let them know how you value them. It doesn't need to be a monetary gift or anything, but just a show of appreciation. Give them a hug. Let them just randomly do it randomly. Say, I have to tell you, and maybe I don't tell you enough, how valuable you are to this office. You are the reason why people come here and heal. You're a huge part of that healing process. Sharing things like that with them can really, really create that bond and help them to buy into your vision at a bigger level.